Even though God's name is not mentioned in the book of Esther, we still see his providence, and we can still see that he is present. He is just working more behind the scenes, and the human characters are given center stage. And really, that's how many people see the great controversy. They are only seeing the human characters, and they're not seeing the God behind it and the spiritual powers behind it. But clearly, there are spiritual powers at play in the book of Esther, a desire to kill God's people. And that came from Haman, the Agagite, who was a descendant of Agag. Saul was commanded to kill Agag and his entire family because God foresaw that this would happen. But Saul did not carry out that completely. And now we have the baleful results. Oftentimes we wonder why something happens, or why God allows something to happen, especially with a lot of the things in the Old Testament. And a lot of it comes down to what God foresees and foreknows. Here we see what happens when human wisdom tries to override God, but God still provides a way. But there's some striking parallels between what's happening here and what's going to happen in the end times. Haman's main device for convincing King Ahasuerus to issue a death decree is that these people are different. They're basically peculiar. They keep their own set of laws. And what we see in the end times, in Revelation 13, is that there is a people who are following the commandments of God. And the commandments of God are different from that of men. And that leads us to wonder, or for us to consider, are we willing to stay faithful to God and his commandments, even though they might be contrary to popular opinion? It might be contrary to what the world is teaching, especially when it comes down to the fourth commandment, one of the most misunderstood or the most intentionally forgotten about commandments. Where are we on that side? God wants us to keep his law. He wants us, and he calls us to be a peculiar people, a priesthood. He wants us to stand out, to be a light on the hill. And we see that there will come a time where, because we are that light on that hill, we will be targeted for our beliefs. But as we're going to see in the rest of the story of Esther, God has a plan and has put us here for such a time as this.